Hi everyone, I am Hayana Verissimo. I'm a staff product designer here at GitLab, and I'm currently acting product design manager for the CI/CD team. And today we have here Lorie, staff UX researcher, and we're going to talk a little bit about the staff responsibilities, what the role is today at GitLab, the challenges, and how the role differs from other roles in our department, but also career development. So, Lorie, why don't you get started and tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah. I am a staff researcher here at GitLab, and I've been in the research game for about 13 years. Before that, I was in education, teaching teachers how to use technology. And my focus here at GitLab currently is with the verify, release, and package teams here.
So, and today, right, you're a staff researcher. What is that? What do you actually do?
Yeah, so I'm the only one that we have currently.
Mhm.
And the distinction between being a staff researcher and an individual contributor role, which maybe would be like your senior or your mid-level, is that the staff researcher has the ability to look across stages, which is another word for our business lines here, to work with different product managers and the product group manager to understand where some opportunities might lie for deeper research that spans more than just a feature or a function inside of a stage group.
Mhm. And with this opportunity, right, to look across the board, how does your a regular day or regular week look like to you? How do you cross collaborate with so many strategic counterparts, right?
I really rely heavily on my product manager, the group
Mm,
product manager, Jackie Porter. She's fantastic. She can help me understand the landscape of where ops is going, where verify is going, how I can help to dive into the holes that we have in our knowledge of either our users or potential users of our features, things like that. So we meet every 6 weeks right now, and we just talk about what's coming up a couple of months out, a couple of quarters out, because strategic research tends to be planned for further out than the more tactical research is that you can pretty much plan for that every
mhm.
milestone or every month or so, but strategic needs a little bit longer of a lens. And so once we meet, I'll meet with her, figure out what focuses there are, and then I hit the ground running. So right now I'm balancing two projects, one for Verify to dive deeper into our Dakota persona to really verify the jobs to be done that we have for them and to really understand how they go about approving tools for their teams, their dev teams, and what that process is and what gets in the way of that process. And once that project's done, it will really allow us to unlock a lot of the huh that we have around like why we keep hitting barriers in sales channels and why aren't people adopting certain features and functions. So I'm in the middle of that project right now. That one came directly from a conversation Jackie and I had.
Mhm.
And the other project that I'm balancing with that is a cross stage group strategic project that's more holistic of the whole company to understand how people are using DevOps tools across DevOps stages. So they may not define it as a stage. They just may say, this is my task and I'm doing it. And then I hand it over to Carl and Carl does whatever he does with it. Um, but the whole goal is to understand what are the tools that they're using? What are the barriers of that they come up against in being able to complete their tasks, accomplish their tasks. So it's not necessarily GitLab centric, the project, it's DevOps centric. So we're definitely looking to talk to people who are in enterprise organizations that have a high level of maturity in their DevOps practices, because we need to be able to talk to internal organizations that are using enough tools to get some feedback on. And the hope is to talk to two different companies this quarter and get some high level themes out of those conversations. And then that will then get bubbled down to the different stage groups so that they can say, hey, there's a theme here with adopting secure or
Mm-hmm.
some features of secure. Let's dive deeper into that as a stage group. And then the idea is that that stage group takes on that piece of the research to become more tactical, less broad and strategic. And then they can kind of get some good, hard and fast. If we change this will be a good thing, recommendations of it.
That's awesome. And you talked previously about your background in education, right? And now
Mhm.
you are in this super technical environment, in this super technical company. Um, and I'm curious to hear what skills did you develop, or what skills, like from your past experience, your past lives, right, outside of GitLab,
Yeah.
that you think were helpful to you, or that helped you transition from an IC to IC leadership in our organization?
Yeah, definitely my curiosity,
Mm,
asking questions and being very interested in where is this going? How are you going to apply this? Because what I've experienced is a lot of people I've worked with, they're really good and steeped in the thing that they're doing right there in that moment. But if you start to ask them, well, if we do this now, next quarter, next year, what does the landscape look for like for this feature? What's a competitive landscape look like? You have different conversations with people and you can allow that conversation can allow the direction to get broader and more strategic. And the more you have those conversations, the more they start to continue to come back to you to have those conversations. And you move from that very tactical person who can help you get answers to that one thing that you had questions to a person who can help broaden your perspective and your scope and enable you to kind of cast the net wide and get more answers than you thought you might need, but then you're prepared for further down the line.
mhm. And in terms of, I don't want to say resources, but the pets, right? So the curiosity, it's maybe the fuel, right? And we
Yeah.
still have to develop uh, our skills to be able to exercise, to showcase the results. Um,
Yes.
so in terms of opportunities, can you talk a bit about what opportunities did you seek as a senior, as a staff researcher that influenced your career?
I'm nosy. So
Laurie.
there was a there was a lot of times that I just asked my product managers, like, so what about this thing? Or like
Mhm.
after we do this, is that gonna go into the roadmap? Or if it's not, why not? What are we doing with this thing? Being able to be part of a product team really enables me to get nosy and be nice, but be nosy and really kind of dig further in than somebody who is in more of a service model where you kind of get farmed out to different groups constantly. You don't really get a good deep sense of what it's all about. Um, yeah, so being able to do that and then having that skill of the business acumen too, to be able to use the vocabulary that your product partners and your design partners use, it brings them closer to where you're coming from quicker, and they then start to adopt some of your business acumen, which is great. And then you can have a conversation without having to stop to define things or to check, are you understanding what I'm saying? It makes those conversations quicker and deeper, faster. And being able to ask the questions around technical things, the landscape, how are things changing in ops, for instance, with this Dakota persona about buying stuff, buying tools. Jackie and I had a really good conversation around what does this project mean to ops? How will this information allow ops to grow and get better and achieve whatever goals ops has? That to me is crucial for somebody who is seeking to stretch their leadership skills, because you do have to understand that in order to, so you can have the conversations with them and then go have other conversations with other people, other PMs or salespeople when you're trying to find people to talk to. You can communicate to them the importance and the significance of this project, but only if you have those conversations with the people who are holding that information.
Mhm. And then in terms of collaboration within the UX research group department, I'm not sure what we call the team.
Team. Yeah.
What is your role today as staff? How do you collaborate with your team? How do you influence, and how do they influence your work, but also your career, your self development at GitLab?
Yeah, I love working with my fellow researchers. We don't get to work enough together, and we're actually actively working to change that. That's one of my OKRs that I've taken
Hmm.
on to encourage more cross collaboration. But I frequently meet with random researchers whenever they have questions or concerns or anything that they've got going on, and we talk about methods. We talk about how they're approaching the project, what concerns they have. I have not done everything. I've only been on this earth for a short time, but I have seen a lot of permutations of projects, and I usually can talk to them and tell them my experiences, and then hopefully that will help them to anticipate what their experience might be in that particular project. So it's a lot of, bring me your troubles and let's talk
Hmm.
about it and figure out how we can make it less troublesome for you. And I love learning from my fellow researchers too, because like I said, I don't know everything.
Hmm.
And just because they're not at a staff level doesn't mean that they can't teach me things. So for instance, Andre, who's out on paternity leave right now, he and I worked on a project for Verify a couple months ago. And just being able to partner with him opened my eyes up to different ways to approach a project, different ways to pull in some quantitative data that I don't tend to lean towards as a default. I'm more of a qualitative person. But it was just wonderful to hear his perspective and to go down those routes with him to implement those different parts of that project. And being able to have him there. And if he hadn't been there, I would have not have even thought of those things. So it's great.
I think that's also part of the beauty, right, of this organization, that you can get access to people as much as
Yeah.
um, I don't think we'll ever be satisfied with the level of collaboration or how much cross collaboration, work we
Right.
do, but we can create these opportunities, right, to help others and also be influenced by the
Yeah.
skills of people around us. So I think that's awesome. Um, I'm curious about challenges, right? Um, did you had to navigate a transition from senior to staff? Because, well, before I get there, um, as a senior, you're already doing staff responsibilities, right, or individual contributor leadership responsibilities at GitLab. Um, but how did you navigate the transition from one role to the other?
I don't feel like I've transitioned, to be
Mm.
honest with you. So I'm still performing my senior role duties. I'm still working with the product managers and each of my design partners on their individual projects. Now they're executing them, but I'm still advising and mentoring them on approaches and discussion guides and all of those things. So that's something that's very tactical, that is very much something that a senior level person would be doing. Um, in addition to that, I'm transitioning to doing those more strategic projects, which are stepping out of that tactical area and taking on the concept of a strategic project and pushing it forward. And at the same time, working with Jackie to help define what strategic research is for GitLab. We took the process of defining what it would be for ops, because that's where we mainly work. But what it's turned into is defining it for the wider company, because before me there was no staff researcher. Strategic research had been done, but not fully. at all. It was very much still under the guise of a tactical strategic
Mm-hmm.
research project. So it's been challenging to try to balance both, because every time I need to step back down to help somebody to solve a problem on a project, it's time that's taken away from my attention that I could push forward some of these strategic projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally get that. I talked to Marcel today about his own transition, right, to senior
Mhm,
responsibilities, and I think there's this the curve, right, for us when we move from one role to the other, especially
mhm.
with the current, with the hand count
Yeah.
within the organization. But that's it's also something that aligns to my next question. What skills do you think would be valuable for people in the research and UX department to invest on that will further their career development?
Well, it depends on where they want to go with their career, because some people want management, some people just want to stay in the practitioner realm. What I would say, make sure that your fundamental skills are solid. So for research, make sure you can write a goal and an objective in a way that you can actually measure it by the thing that you're designing to measure it with. I've seen, not here, but other places, people who just cannot get that concept. Um, Make sure that you know different research methods. Try them out. Um, they're just Google one of them, and you can find a list of pros and cons, and when you should use one versus a different one. Internalize that, because you're going to be seen as the resource for those answers. You're going to be the Google. And you also need to be able to speak with confidence. So being able to have all of that internalized lends that confidence to your ability to converse with somebody else about it and give them advice around it. Because as you move up in your career ladder, you typically get further away from the hands-on activities, but you get closer to the advising and the helping activities and mentoring of other people. And so the more you got it down and you've got it solid in you, the easier those conversations will be, and the easier it will be for you to move up with those conversations.
Yeah, this is great advice, and it's really something like the skills that you have to develop, right? Over the years, not something that you just wake up and you know everything. That's
Sadly,
also
no.
no,
Yeah.
no, fortunately, but
Yes.
also I think it talks a bit about how leadership uh, does not come from your title only, right? It comes from
Right.
the
Yeah.
results and also being able to influence others around you and be
Yes.
able to facilitate growth around you as well. So
Hmm.
I see that also a lot in our organization.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're almost at time, but I still want to ask you what areas of your work, your personal development, that you're hoping to explore further as a staff product designer. What else?
I know. I know. I've done just about all the methods. The one that I've always wanted to do was like go and live with somebody, like be a true ethnographer, but
Mm,
that doesn't come up very much. Um, in terms of skills, I really want to work on being able to offer solutions to others in leadership. So I'm really good at offering solutions to people who are more tactical and have problems, and I can help them with that. But to be more strategic in the thinking for things that are outside of research. So not necessarily strategic research doing that, but more things that would help the business, what in a wider range. So maybe things that would come up on the leadership call and things like that. I really definitely want to work on my toolkit for helping them with those problems.
the big, hairy, fun problems.
Yes, yes.
That's awesome. Anything else, Laurie, that you think would be valuable to share here today about career development, about growth, and yeah, just
Yeah.
UX at GitLab?
I think that the first step to career growth is to know yourself and know where you want to go. If you don't know who you are, it's going to be hard to get where you want to go. If you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. And being able to talk with other people who are in the spot where you think you might want to be, it's almost like when you started your career out and maybe you did some informational interviews with designers or researchers to find out, like, what do you do all day? Consider that. Consider having those conversations with people, and talk to people outside of GitLab. Every company is different. Um, and really do it almost like a research project. Try to be as unbiased as you can. Take in their feedback and say, is that really what I want to do? What they have to do all day, or do I really want to do something else? And what does that vision look like? What are the skills that you need to acquire in order to get to that place? And once you're there, is that where you're going to stop? Sometimes, and sometimes no. It's a very individual experience for
Yeah.
people. And I think sometimes we can get locked into, I have to get that next promotion because that's the next place for me to go. And sometimes it doesn't have to be. Look, it's a big world out there. Look around and talk to people and really decide what gives you, sound very like woo, but what gives you joy? Like
Hmm.
what makes you happy? Work doesn't have to suck, and you should focus on the things that you enjoy. I enjoy talking to people. Like, I'm very introverted, but I enjoy figuring out people's problems and hearing their issues that they're having with things, because I know that I have the skills to work with my product and design partners to make their lives easier. And that's really what I enjoy. And you just have to figure out what that is for yourself.
I couldn't agree more. I totally see myself in what you just said. And it's an exercise and it's something that we have
Mhm.
to do for ourselves, right? And we've been talking
Yeah.
about career development and growth opportunities within our organization. But I agree with you. For you to grow, you need to know who you are, right? As a designer, as a
Yeah.
professional, to understand what makes you happy, and then
Mhm.
use people around you, use in a positive way to enable
Yes.
your growth and to align with their own goals, because especially I think in our organization, we're in a very privileged position where indeed everyone can contribute and everything is so transparent and you can see the opportunities and create them in the open and bring people um, to align your personal goals, your career goals with where the organization is going. And
Yeah.
indeed, for some people, for not everyone, a promotion is a measure of success. And
Hmm.
that's also uh, valued in our organization. So I really appreciate your insights, Lorie. I really enjoyed our
Yeah.
conversation. Thanks for
Yeah. Me too.
making the time today.
Of course.